Jay Bills for Media Spotlight UK, and I'm here with boxing promoter extraordinaire Eddie Hearn in the building. We're here, obviously, Reigning Boxing Club. We've just seen Johnny Fisher do his open workout. It's a pleasure to see you here. How did you make of his open workout just now?
Look, very strong, very powerful. I mean, a lot of these media workouts, fighters don't really like doing it because they've done so many of them. But this is Johnny's first one, and incredible turnout here today.
Yeah.
So he's really putting it in. And actually, what fighters have got to understand as well, when they put it in a media workout, it's actually really good to watch. I'm sure you enjoyed it. I'm sure the kids down here enjoyed it. It's good for the viral content to see him smash pads. He's a big, strong heavyweight. Good to be in Raynham. It's 20 minutes from the office, obviously.
So you're not that far off.
Good to see an Essex boy thriving like Johnny Fisher. And he's got a big fight on August 12th on a massive card. It's AJ against Whyte. So a lot of pressure on him, and I think he looks great.
And of course, obviously, he's done some sparring with Harry Armstrong before. Obviously, they've had encounters. So, obviously, seeing them to get into the ring, how do you expect that to turn out? Knowing that they've had their history of sparring each other before.
I think it's a really tough fight. It's not one that we jumped at as a team because we know Harry Armstrong. He's been slung in a couple of fights late, so he's got a couple of defeats on the record. But we know how good he is. He's 6'6". He's talented. He's skillful. He's very tough. And Johnny's never gone beyond 3, 4, 5 rounds. So all of a sudden, you're in a 10-round championship fight with all that pressure. Now we saw Matty Harris the other week. All of a sudden, do 5 rounds, couldn't stand up. How do we know that won't happen to Johnny? So these are the tests that you have to pass if you're going to get to where I believe you're going to be.
Because I was going to say about with Johnny's career, he's had a career having TKOs and finishing in early rounds. Obviously, Harry Armstrong with his opponent. Do you see that as being his toughest opponent to date, to go through in different rounds?
Because it's the first person that's probably genuinely come and think I'm going to win the fight. The others talk a good game. They get hit round the side of the head or round the ear and go, this, I'm not up for this.
Yeah.
Harry won't. He's very tough. He'll try and win the fight. He's a Brit fighting on an AJ undercard in front of 18,000. It's a different kind of fight now.
It's a different ball game.
But we want to see it and we're ready for it.
Yeah. And of course, obviously, Anthony Joshua, Dylan Whyte, their rematch. Obviously, they've had their chemistry from years ago in terms of their first fight. How's the vibe different now? Obviously, they know each other inside out. How do you expect things to be different for their rematch?
Well, they're maturer now. They're much better fighters now. And it probably means more to them now because of the stages that they're at in their career. Defeat for either man, arguably, could be the end. And when they first fought, I don't think they really knew what they were doing. It was just a tear-up. Now it's a tear-up with meaning. But I think it's a tear-up that will go deeper in terms of the fight. As I said, technically they're much better now, both of them. And I think it's going to be a really good fight. AJ looks in tremendous shape. Whyte will always come to fight.
Yeah.
We talk about domestic fights, like we said, with Harry Armstrong. Yeah. This is obviously on the same level. It's North London against South London. It's the history, it's everything. They're going to be fighting with a lot of pride. And I think they're going to go to war.
So then what happens afterwards then? Because obviously with their fight, there's going to be bigger fights that they want their way. So where do you see Anthony Joshua and Dylan Whyte's career past their fight? Where do you see that going for both of them?
Well, I think that AJ wants to fight Deontay Wilder. Dillian Whyte wants to spoil that party and fight Wilder himself. Then you've got Tyson Fury next year as well. See what he does. But AJ's really only interested in big fights, and with that Deontay Wilder fight pretty much secured in Saudi, he didn't really have to have this type of fight, but he wanted to have it because he wants to be in big fights, and he likes the Dillian Whyte fight. He can get himself up for that fight, and he thinks it's a fight he's going to win well.
And you mentioned highly of Andy Cruz. You said he's got a big future ahead of him. He's gone on record to say that he wants to go for British and European titles sooner rather than later. What do you make of that on your end?
Andy Cruz?
Andy Cruz.
Yeah, he's from Cuba. He can't go through the British and European, but what he has done in his first fight is he's gone and won the IBF Intercontinental title. I think he's already one of the best lightweights in the world, but we need to keep him consistent. We need to keep the activity, and I'd like him to fight Keyshawn Davis. I think that's a great fight, but we need to keep him active.
And of course, with Conor Benn, you said on the Daily Mail that you said that he would likely be exonerated for failed drug test. Where do you see that now? Where do you see that in terms of Conor Benn? What do you see on your end as far as that level right now?
Yeah, I mean, Conor Benn, we're waiting on the decision from UKAD, which is the route that everybody asked him to go down. He's done everything that's been asked of him. If he's cleared to fight, I don't know what else more we can say.
Sure.
And he's looking to fight as soon as possible, September, October. But fingers crossed we get that result soon and he can resume his career.
And you've gone on record to say about, obviously, with the incident that happened at Kingpin with Daniel Helmsley flashing, obviously the Kingpin are partnered with DAZN. Do you think that harms, any credibility?
Some people talk, they take a headline of the article and don't actually read the article or read what I said. What I said was, we need to boot that as far away
from pro fights as possible.
Not to get rid of it. I understand its position. It's an entertainment format that does very well on DAZN. But it's not boxing. We don't want to be associated with it, but we understand it. And those guys, Misfits, they're very clever. They do a very good job. It's high-level production, and I get it. What happened in that incident, I don't think is good for anybody. Yeah. Our job is to try and encourage young kids to get in local boxing clubs, show them positive role models. And we know the world's changing. It's gone a bit mad, but as someone who has a daughter that goes to a local boxing club, I want her to look at Katie Taylor rather than an incident like that. But I think it's entertaining. I think it rates well, but it's not boxing. Yeah. It's just an entertainment format that, like something else that you see on TV these days. And hopefully at the same time, though, we can just respect the sport enough to do things right. And I feel like what I've seen this week, I think Misfits are putting in this council and
small council.
Yeah. I like that. I like that because they're not saying we're professional boxing, but what they are saying is we respect it and we take it seriously. And I think
obviously they're still developing this. They've only been around for a year.
Yeah, well, they don't have a responsibility to follow the exact same code, but just and I think these people that are involved, Kala, and they love boxing, so they won't want to see. It's difficult. I didn't carry it on. Could have made a lot of money out of influencer boxing, but I didn't carry it on because I just didn't want to do it. I didn't feel comfortable, and Kala won't feel overly comfortable doing it, especially when that happens because he's a boxing guy through and through. So he'll be involved, but he'll still want to keep that level of credibility, and I like what they've put in place for that kind of stuff.
And of course, obviously, there's been talks. It's pretty much almost near confirmed. Obviously, KSI versus Tommy Fury. That's looking like it's potentially ahead of October. What do you think of that? Obviously, pro boxer coming into the fray. What do you think of that? And how do you see that play out as far as the fight? Because obviously, we've seen how KSI's progression is. We know Tommy Fury's background. Like, where do you see that going?
I actually think it's a really interesting fight. Like, I said to KSI when I saw him recently, I said the improvements you've made are unbelievable. Every time you fight, I think you're going to get beat, but you're actually getting better and better. I think it's a step maybe too far against Tommy Fury, who's obviously beaten Jake Paul, and I think he was probably very nervous in that fight. I think he'll improve, but fair play to KSI. He doesn't have to fight Tommy Fury. He can go and take an easier fight against an influencer, but respect to him and good luck to him. I think it's a good fight.
And do you think, if KSI is to beat Tommy Fury, obviously obviously it's been a workaround to get to Jake Paul, and obviously with Tommy Fury this is the next stage for him. Do you think that we will actually get to see KSI versus Jake Paul, and do you think it will still have the hype that it would have been, even though Jake Paul had lost his fight against Tommy Fury? Does it have the same hype?
Yeah, and I think he'll beat Nate Diaz comfortably. I think the problem is that KSI will win the fight if he wins the fight, and then say I'm the strict A side of that fight, and then it starts getting messy. But if he beats Tommy Fury, fair play to him. He's out there as a real credible guy in the boxing sport, really, to be a YouTuber that comes through and beats someone like him. So good luck to all.
And finally, obviously, we just mentioned about Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. Where do you see that going? Obviously, Nate Diaz being MMA background, Jake Paul wanted to have that fight with him. The hype is really building up. So where do you see that going as far as?
I see Jake Paul winning the fight by stoppage. I've looked at Nate Diaz, obviously an unbelievable mixed martial artist, but what I've seen, I don't like what I've seen in the boxing sense, but people tell me he can fight a little bit, so we'll see, but I think Jake Paul's stopping.
All right, well, it was an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me, and I hope I'll see you more events in general.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.